Hey everyone, I'm Scott Stokely, and I'm about to play the greatest disc golf hole ever in the history of disc golf, or maybe I should say Frisbee golf. So, this is going to come with history because I just want to fill everybody in as much as possible on the history of this beautiful game. And it starts at this wall right here, kind of. So, I grew up in La Crescenta. I was 7 years old. My dad died, and 1976, and my mom would take me up to all the local parks, doing kid stuff. And one of the parks, Oak Grove Park, had a Frisbee golf course. And it was super fun, but not unusual. There were baseball fields and playgrounds, merry-go-rounds. But when I went to Oak Grove, I'd play Frisbee golf. Now, it wasn't a big part of my life. But when I turned 11, I moved from La Crescenta, which is very blue collar, nice blue collar, but blue collar, to La Cañada, which was rich and white and conservative, and I did not fit in here. I remember I got here, I had a beautiful Webco bike. Well, every other kid in town had a Redline, a PK Ripper, and they would roll their eyes when they saw me ride by. A couple years later, the best illustration of what La Cañada was, maybe it's gotten better, but I have a memory of in the 1 year of high school that I did, of a girl getting a brand new convertible Volkswagen Rabbit for her 16th birthday. And she came to school pissed. She was so upset. That's not the car she wanted. She couldn't believe her dad bought her a brand new convertible Volkswagen Rabbit, and her friends are like, yeah, he's an asshole. And that was La Cañada at that time. And so I didn't fit in, didn't make friends, basically any friends here. But I'd played Frisbee golf before. So when I was 11 years old, I hopped over this wall. I grabbed a Frisbee, probably from my toy box. It was just like a store-bought Frisbee. Took a walk to Oak Grove Park, and I'm going to take that walk right now. I haven't done this walk in many, many years. But this is a walk that from that day forward, I did virtually every day for many years. At first by myself, eventually Marty Peters, who lived next door, became one of the Oak Grove Gophers. My best friend Matt Goodwin would play all the time, lived with us for a while too. Now, here was the interesting thing. I didn't realize it at the time because I thought moving to La Cañada was about the worst thing that ever happened to a kid. By the way, first world problems, right? But as a kid, I just knew I wasn't happy. What I didn't realize in hindsight is that this street here that we're walking down, we're walking behind on the horse trail, at the end of the street around the corner was the Frisbee golf course, Oak Grove. There were no kids that lived between my house and the course, which meant out of every single kid on planet Earth, I lived closer to the world's first Frisbee golf course than any of them. Marty lived next door. Marty could have easily, if his parents had bought the house 2 doors down, would have been the kid who lived the closest to the Frisbee golf course. So Marty missed it by about 8 feet. But that's where I lived. And so every day I would get out of school, at least until in the 10th grade when I turned 15, when I dropped out of school, I would hop that wall and I'd come play Frisbee every day. So the thing about Oak Grove Park is because, and the thing why I was able to fit in there is that it's on the other side of the tracks. There's no tracks, but basically other side of the tracks. Over here's La Cañada. Parents didn't let their kids go to Oak Grove Park. If they did, it was heavily supervised. But it's just not where people in La Cañada hung out. Because in Oak Grove Park were all the hippies, all the blue-collar folks, many of them unemployed, many of them not unemployed, right? But it was just a crowd. I mean, these Oak Grove Gophers, the club is the best people I've ever known my entire life. But when you were from this town, they didn't look like you. By the way, that wasn't the entire culture of the course, obviously, because lots of people played Frisbee golf that lived in Los Angeles. So, of course, there's going to be people that they were part of the Frisbee community that they didn't, live in the park drinking all day. But a lot of people did. Sorry, that's just the reality. Early days of our sport, the history is rich. The interesting thing about Oak Grove, and I've shared this story before, but a big reason why Frisbee golf took off was because it was a party park. Now, the reason it was a party park is that this street right here separates La Cañada from Pasadena. So I crossed the street. I'm no longer in La Cañada. I'm in Pasadena. La Cañada police didn't have jurisdiction or whatever the rules were. They didn't come here. So La Cañada police stopped at this intersection. The Pasadena police could come here. But the only thing on this side of this entire Arroyo Seco Valley is Oak Grove Park. There's nothing else. Well, I guess Jet Propulsion Laboratory right up the street too. That's all Pasadena. But it was like a good 10-minute drive out of the way for the police to come here. So when the police came here, like they had to like take a chunk out of their day just to come to the park, which meant they basically almost never came here. Well, since they never came here, this is a great place to party, right? Especially talking about the 70s and 80s. So a lot of nefarious stuff happened here from the best human beings I've ever met in my entire life. But it was a party park. And a large part of the early culture of the sport was the fact that you could come here, you could get off a hard day of work, and you could relax, unsupervised as an adult, as it should be. Now, right here, let me step over and show you. If you look here through the trees, which you can't because trees block light, but if you could look through the trees here, you would see this big ravine. And this big ravine is America's Sistine Chapel. It's America's Taj Mahal, my opinion. Greatest thing to ever come out of America is this thing right here. This is the most beautiful place on planet Earth. Oak Grove Park, the world's first Frisbee golf course. Now, you could walk all the way around. We never did that. We beat a path down here. I'm so disappointed to find there's no longer a path cut through here, which means kids aren't coming down here. They're still not coming down here to play from La Cañada. Drives me up a wall. Or they just drive in their convertible Volkswagen Rabbits. But I'm going to walk down the hill, and I am going to try not to fall. If I fall, it'll be on video. It'll be awesome. Worth it. So we would come down this hill to go play. Now, eventually, when we started having a whole bag full of Frisbees, and there were Frisbees back then because they were made by Whammo, we tried, because it's a downhill shot, throwing them off the hill because it's fun to throw Frisbees off a hill. We very quickly learned that if we did that, we would lose them, and we didn't have the money to buy more. So we stopped doing that. So we just hurried up to get to the course. Now, I said that kids weren't allowed to play here. I was allowed to play here because my mom was cool AF. I say that so I don't get demonetized on YouTube. Oh, I knew I was going to fall. So my mom let me play here. My mom got to know some of the Oak Grove Gophers. My mom looked at these people as, holy crap, people. And so my mom was cool with me coming down here. She got to know them. She got to know Mark Horn, Dan Roddick, Rick Schaefer, Joe Orsino, heck, Jeff and Johnny Lissaman, Frank Aguilera, Russ Hamilton. I mean, everybody. My mom didn't spend a lot of time here, but everybody had met my mom. They knew her as Mrs. Stokely. They treated her with respect. She gave them respect back. And I was safe to come to the park. Pretty cool, right? What a weird concept. And this is where we came. So we get down to here. Ready for this? This is the big reveal. If you haven't been here. By the way, if you're interested in disc golf, this has to be a pilgrimage. I mean, this is like going to, I don't know, I think there's a golf course in Scotland. It's the first course. But this is at Pasadena. Like everybody winds up out here eventually sometimes. Make a pilgrimage, come to Oak Grove Park. I mean, this is where history of our sport began. I mean, people played Frisbee golf before here, but this is basically a starting place. You know, Ed Hedrick put this course in the ground. The baskets were done by hand. They were actually like people bent the baskets with like wire bendy thingies. I think that's the actual technical term. And some of my friends to this day have those original baskets in their backyard. People like, I think well, I don't want to say their names because I don't trust you people to not go steal them. Actually, I trust all of you, but all but one of you, but I don't trust you. So this is like literally where it all happened. Like here, right there. That's the tee pad of the hole that I teed off on with a 2-stroke lead going into the final hole of my first major tournament win. It was great. I was such an horrible punk kid, and we're getting very close to hole 1 right now, but I was such a punk kid. I took a white t-shirt, and all I wore was a white t-shirt, and on the back of it I took a big Sharpie and I wrote, "Thought I wouldn't," with a question mark on it. And every time I threw a good shot in the finals in front of the gallery, everybody would clap. I would turn around and just I'd point at my back. "Thought I wouldn't." I mean, so gross. But at the time, there was a lot of attitude in the sport. Not from everybody, but certainly from some people. You know, this was counterculture. I mean, we weren't mainstream. We didn't follow the same rules as everybody else. By the way, it's the tee pad where I got my first hole-in-one. I got it with a blue 171-gram arrow. I still remember. Now, I'm going to walk over to a place here, and I'm going to show it to you, and it's not going to seem that special, except history was made on this spot in our sport. And this spot is what I believe the second biggest day in the history of disc golf took place. Right there. Right there in that parking lot. So the biggest day in the history of disc golf is the day Ed Hedrick and many other people, but put the first basket in the ground in this park. I mean, that has to be considered the biggest day in the history of our sport. But the second biggest day happened right there. And that's where Tim Selinsky, Dave Dunapace, and Harold Duvall hopped out of their car in 1983, opened up a box of the first commercially successful available beveled edge golf discs, which was for a company they formed at the time was called Champion, later renamed Innova. And they said, hey, these are what golf discs, this is the future of our sport. And there were other companies out there. Discraft was producing good discs. Whammo was out there. A couple smaller companies, AMF, Brand X, Benwall. But there was not a paradigm shift that happened that day. There will never be another day like it in the history of our sport. We went from being Frisbee golf to disc golf. That, like, in that second. And it happened on that spot. And I was standing right there next to the box. I mean, try to imagine. Everybody's out there throwing Frisbees, and then golf weight Frisbees from Whammo. And then all of a sudden, someone opens a box of discs, and every single person can throw like 40% farther. Like 5 minutes ago, you threw 40%, not as far as you do now. The whole sport changed. There'll never be a day like that. And I got to be there for it. So this is it. This is hole 1. Actually, real quick, I'm going to show one more thing before I play the hole. This is the original sign. Insane, right? Like you can almost, I almost want to whisper, but I can't whisper because of needing to be able to hear the audio. But I feel like I'm in a church, right? This is literally the Sistine Chapel, except the Sistine Chapel isn't quite as beautiful as Oak Grove. I'm going to tee off hole 1, and let's see how it goes. I'm going to throw my harp and my Berg. It's all I brought. I mean, we got a car full of stuff, but that's all I brought to play with. Let's see how it goes. What's up, man? Hey, give me just a sec. I'm shooting a video for, I'll be back after 1 hole, but I will come back to say hi. Okay. Thank you very much. So I'm doing a history of Oak Grove, my favorite place in the world. So this is so cool. I was here. So I was on that tee pad, not the close one, the far one, hole 6. And Bruce Sisson comes up to me as a little kid, And he's like, hey, I've seen you here every day. He gives me some golf discs or golf Frisbees. And when he gave me those, I got to play real Frisbee golf, not like pretend Frisbee golf, but real Frisbee golf. And I got introduced to the Oak Grove Gophers, and that is a moment that just changed my life forever. I talk about, doing something to help a little kid that can change the course of their life. That moment, there we go. That was it. I watched this hole. First person I saw not throw straight at the basket, but threw over the trees, which that set the ball in motion for my entire life, right? That I was going to throw far. I saw John Winterkorn throw a hyzer shot over the trees. And then I saw Ken Jordan do it later. And then Steve Bentley and Scott Zimmerman, Joe Orsino. But I still remember it was John Winterkorn was the first one to throw over the trees, hyzer on hole 1. Like, that was like I was going to say obscene. It was obscene. It was gross. It was weird. It was like, how can you possibly, it would like, it's like going watching Bo Jackson hit a 550-foot home run as a little kid. And you're like, home runs are supposed to be 400 feet, not 550 feet. Like, ridiculous. And so he did that. I got to see Bruce Sisson step up right there. And he's the first person to get a hole-in-one on this hole. Like the hole had never been aced before, ever. By the way, 10 chain baskets, almost impossible to ace. Bruce is left-handed. He threw a lefty anhyzer over the trees, went in the hole, jumped up and down on the bench, lost his mind, and I'm standing next to him as a little kid. Like, unbelievable. All right, I'm going to try to birdie the world's first and the greatest disc golf hole in the world. No, the greatest Frisbee golf hole in the world. Now I'm going to attempt to par the greatest Frisbee golf hole in the world. Oh my God. Okay, I better not bogey. I'm not reshooting this video. All right. So, like any great golf hole, you don't get 2s on the greatest golf holes in the world. The greatest golf holes in the world, you're happy with a 4. And I'm super happy I got a 4 because, God, like I try not to tear up. I mean that. And the only time I tear up, I'm sorry, I'm from the 70s. It's a gender thing, but I'm not allowed to cry over things like this. It's just not acceptable for my generation. But, by the way, now, unsubscribe, thumbs down, I know. But it's hard not to cry when I think about this. This is the most special place in the world. To me, it's the most special place in the history of disc golf. And if you get a chance to come out to Oak Grove Park, make a pilgrimage here. There's been battles with the cities over the years. There's no guarantee this course will always be here. It may not, and that's a sad reality, but it is a reality. The club, Oak Grove Gophers, do an amazing job, but, you find City Hall sometimes. So get out here, play at the Oak Grove Park when you can. If any of the Oak Grove Gophers are watching the Gophers, I love you guys with all my heart. I even got a tattoo. I even got my Oak Grove Gophers. Dude, how contorted is this? My Oak Grove Gophers tattoo, because I love all of you. And you all raised me, and thank you. Love you. Please, if you like these, subscribe, and thanks.